My mom and dad made me prepare my brother's birthday dinner for 20 guests. Mom said, "Cook quietly. This night is not yours." My brother laughed, "Servants don't need chairs." I smiled, then left for a hotel downtown before sunset. When everyone walked into an empty dining room, Dad saw the table cards and went pale. The rosemary was in the pan, and the butter was browning, and the kitchen smelled like my grandmother's kitchen, which is the kitchen I learned to cook in when I was 8 years old, and which is the only kitchen in my life where the cooking was connected to love instead of labor. The lamb was resting on the cutting board. The honey glaze for the chicken was reducing on the back burner. The bread was in the oven, 14 minutes from done. And my mother was standing in the doorway telling me where I was not allowed to sit. "Cook quietly, Locke. This night is not yours. You are here to prepare and serve. Do not sit with the guests. Do not make small talk. Do not bring up your job or your apartment or your little computer problems. Sayer's colleagues are coming, and I will not have them see the family's it boy hovering around the table like he belongs there. Serve the food, clear the plates, and stay in the kitchen where you are useful." Odette delivered the sentence the way she delivers every instruction to me, with the efficiency of a woman who is assigned a role and does not expect the role to have feelings about the assignment. The role is the cook. The cook is her son. And the son is not a guest in the house where he grew up, at the dinner he is preparing. For the brother whose birthday he is funding was $680 in groceries purchased yesterday at Giant Eagle on his credit card. My brother Sayer was leaning against the counter. 28 years old today. He was holding a beer that he had opened at 10 a.m. because birthdays start early when you are the son who is celebrated, and the celebrating does not require contribution, because the contribution is provided by the other son, the son who is in the kitchen at 8 a.m. with a cutting board and a recipe binder and a list of 20 place settings and 0 chairs reserved for himself. "Servants don't need chairs, bro. Just keep the wine flowing." The sentence landed on the cutting board next to the lamb. Servants, the word my brother uses for the man who has been cooking every family meal since their grandmother died. The man who learned to debone a lamb shoulder at age 12, who can julienne carrots faster than a mandolin, who has fed this family at every Easter, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every birthday, and every Sunday dinner for 11 years without a single meal credited to him by name. The family says Odette made dinner the way a company says management achieved results. The person who managed did the work, and the person who managed the person took the credit. Sayer's girlfriend, Wren, was at the kitchen table scrolling her phone. She had arrived at 9 a.m. and had not offered to help. The not offering was consistent with Wren's contribution to every family gathering, which is her presence and her appetite, and the assumption that the food arrives. Because food arrives, the way electricity arrives, and water arrives, and the man in the kitchen arrives, all of it infrastructure, all of it invisible, all of it someone else's labor. I looked at the lamb. I looked at the chicken. I looked at the bread timer. I looked at the 20 place cards I had written in calligraphy on cream cardstock, the calligraphy my grandmother Vero taught me when I was 10, because Vero believed that a man who cooks should also be able to set a beautiful table. And the setting includes the cards, and the cards include the handwriting, and the handwriting is the care, and the care is the thing that makes a table instead of a surface. I had been cooking for 8 hours. 8 hours. Since 8 a.m. The lamb shoulder took 2 hours of prep and 4 hours of slow roasting. The honey glazed chicken took 90 minutes. The rosemary bread took 3 hours, including the rise. The 3 side dishes took another hour each. The dessert, Vero's 3-layer chocolate cake with espresso buttercream, had been assembled at 6 a.m. before I drove to the house. 8 hours of labor for a dinner I would not sit at, a birthday I would not be acknowledged at, and a table where 20 people would eat my food and credit my mother. The 20 guests were arriving at 7 p.m. It was 4 p.m. The food was done. The table was set. The cards were in their holders. The wine was poured. The candles were ready to light. Everything was ready for the birthday dinner of a man who called his brother a servant while leaning against a counter, holding a beer he did not pay for, in a house whose mortgage he does not contribute to. I smiled. The smile of a man who has made a decision. I walked to the stove. I turned off every burner. I opened the cabinet under the counter and pulled out the foil containers I had bought at Restaurant Depot on Thursday, the containers a professional caterer uses for transport, the containers that hold food for exactly the purpose I was about to use them for, removal. The lamb went into the first container. 4 pounds of slow roasted rosemary lamb shoulder, carved and arranged. Lid sealed. The chicken went into the second and third containers. 12 pieces of honey glazed chicken, the glaze still glistening. Lid sealed. The bread went into a bag. 2 loaves of rosemary focaccia. The bag tied. The sides went into 3 more containers. Roasted vegetables, garlic mashed potatoes, Caesar salad with homemade dressing. Lid sealed. The cake went into the box it came in. 3 layers. Espresso buttercream. Sayer's name in chocolate script on top. Box closed. 7 containers. 1 bag. 1 cake box. I carried them to my car in 3 trips. The trips took 11 minutes. Odette was upstairs changing for the dinner. Pell was in the garage adjusting the outdoor speakers for the after-dinner gathering Odette had planned on the patio. Wren was still at the kitchen table. None of them noticed the first trip. Wren looked up on the second trip, saw the container in my hands, and returned to her phone, because Wren's contribution to every family event is the observation of exit without the curiosity to ask why. On the third trip, I passed Sayer in the hallway. He looked at the container in my hands. His beer was half empty. His other hand was in his pocket. The posture of a man whose birthday dinner is being carried past him in a foil container and who does not yet understand what the carrying means. What are you doing? Leaving. The dinner is in 3 hours. The dinner was in the containers. The containers are in my car. And the cook is checking into a hotel. Sayer's beer hand stopped halfway to his mouth. The stopping was the pause of a man who has just heard a sentence that does not fit the script he expected. Because the script Sayer expected was the same script that has played for 11 years. The brother cooks, the brother serves, the brother cleans, and the brother comes back next month to do it again. The script did not include the word leaving. The script did not include containers. And the script did not include a hotel. You cannot take the food. It is my birthday dinner. It is my food. I bought it. I cooked it. I plated it. And I am taking it. The table is set. The cards are in their holders. The candles are ready. The only thing missing will be the dinner and the cook. And the two are connected because without the cook there is no dinner. And without the dinner there is no birthday. And without the birthday there is no reason for 20 people to sit at a table where the person who fed them was told to stand in the kitchen. Sayer put his beer down on the hallway table. The putting down was the first time Sayer had set something down instead of being served something in his brother's presence. And the setting down was the beginning of a new experience for Sayer, which is the experience of a man whose infrastructure is walking out the door, carrying the infrastructure's product in foil containers. I walked back to the dining room one last time. The table was set. 20 plates, 20 glasses, 20 cloth napkins, 20 place cards in silver holders, cream cardstock, calligraphy in black ink, each card with a guest's name on the front in the handwriting my grandmother taught me. The table was beautiful. The table was empty. And the table was about to have one more thing added to it before the cook left. I flipped each card over. I had a fine point marker in my pocket, and on the back of each card I wrote one line. Pell's card, 1,400-month mortgage supplement, 4 years, 67,200, from your servant. Odette's card, 220-month medical copays, 3 years, 7,920, from the it boy who belongs in the kitchen. Sayer's card, 260-month car insurance, 3 years, 9,360. Happy birthday from the brother who doesn't need a chair. Wren's card, the man who cooked tonight was told to stay in the kitchen. The food left with him. The remaining 16 cards, for Sayer's colleagues and friends and the family friends Odette had invited to see what a beautiful dinner she puts together. The dinner you were invited to tonight was bought prepared, and cooked by the son who was not given a chair. He left. The food left with him. Grocery cost, $680. Years of free cooking, 11. Total support from the servant, $85,160. 20 cards, 20 backs, 20 truths. Written in the same calligraphy that Vero taught me, because the truth deserves the same care as the name. I picked up Vero's recipe binder from the kitchen counter. Faded green. 3-ring. Handwritten recipes in cursive that smells like flour and thyme. The binder that has been in this kitchen for every meal I have cooked in this house. The binder Odette has never opened, because Odette does not cook, and Odette does not read, and Odette does not know what the binder contains. Because the containing is the skill, and the skill is mine, and the binder is mine, and the mine was leaving. Welcome to Family Secret Tales, where the person who cooks the meal decides who eats it, and the family that called their son a servant is about to sit at a table with 20 plates, 0 food, and 20 cards that explain why. If your parents have ever made you cook the dinner and told you to stay in the kitchen, subscribe now. Because the lamb is in the car, and the cards are on the table, and the cook is checking into a hotel downtown. My name is Locke Hughes. I am 33 years old. I am an IT support specialist at Allegheny Systems in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I manage help desk tickets, deploy hardware, troubleshoot network infrastructure, and keep 280 employees connected to the systems they need to do their jobs. My salary is $66,000 a year. My family calls my work fixing computers and the little tech thing. The cooking is not my profession. The cooking is my inheritance. My grandmother, Vero, taught me to cook starting at age 8. She taught me in her kitchen on Saturdays, the two of us at the counter, her hands guiding mine through the dough and the seasoning and the timing that separates a meal from a dish. She taught me that cooking is not service. Cooking is generosity. The cook decides who eats. The cook decides the portion. The cook decides the table. Vero said it once when I was 12, and she was teaching me to carve a roast. The person who holds the knife feeds the room. Remember who is holding the knife. I have held the knife for 11 years in a family that treats the knife as a collar. My coworker Joss is 41. He sits across from me in the IT bullpen and has listened to every family story over lunch for 4 years. He is the person who said, the Friday before Sayer's dinner, when I told him I was cooking for 20 and not sitting down, you cook for 8 hours. You bought the food. You set the table. And they told you servants don't need chairs. Leave the cards. Take the food. Let them read the bill. When I told Joss about the calligraphy, he leaned back in his chair and said, your grandmother taught you to cook and to write. Your family uses the cooking and ignores the writing. The cards are the writing, Locke. The writing is the part they never valued. And the writing is the part that is going to tell 20 people the truth. Joss is right. The writing is Vero's. The cooking is Vero's. And the truth is mine. Vero died when I was 16. She left me the binder and a sentence, the person who holds the knife feeds the room. Remember who is holding the knife. I have been holding the knife for 11 years, and the room has been eating, and the eating has never produced a thank you or a chair or a sentence that says, Locke cooked this. The sentence the room produces is, Odette, this is wonderful, and Odette says thank you, and the thanking is the taking, and the taking is the theft, and the theft has been happening in plain sight for 11 years, and nobody has seen it, because nobody looks at the cook when the food is on the table. Sayer is 28. He works in pharmaceutical sales. His salary is $92,000. He drives a BMW 3 Series, whose insurance is on my policy because his 2 at-fault accidents priced him out of individual coverage. He lives in an apartment in Shadyside that costs $1,800 a month and that he affords because his car insurance is subsidized by his brother, and his dinners are catered by his brother, and his birthday parties are cooked by his brother, and the brother is free. Because the brother is family, and family does not charge family for labor that family has decided is free. Sayer has never cooked a meal, not once. not a grilled cheese, not scrambled eggs, not a pot of water for pasta. The not cooking is not a lack of skill. It is a lack of need. The need has been filled by Odette for 18 years, and by me for 11, and the filling has been so complete that Sayer does not know where the pans are in his own mother's kitchen, which is the kitchen I have been cooking in since I was 22. What my family does not know is what I fund. Mortgage supplement for Pell and Odette. $1,400 a month for 4 years. $67,200. Pell retired at 58 when his back gave out. His pension covers $1,600 of the $3,000 mortgage. The gap is $1,400. The gap is mine. 4 years. 48 payments. The house where I am told to cook quietly and stay in the kitchen is a house whose mortgage is held together by the son who is not allowed to sit at the table. Odette's medical copays, $220 a month for 3 years, $7,920. Blood pressure medication, thyroid medication, quarterly blood work, specialist visits. The copays exceed Odette's prescription budget. The exceeding is mine. Sayer's car insurance, $260 a month on my policy for 3 years. $9,360. Because Sayer had 2 at-fault accidents in 3 years, and his individual rate was $580, and the difference between $580 and $260 is the difference between a brother who pays and a brother who drives, and the paying is mine and the driving is his. Free cooking for 11 years, every Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthday, and monthly Sunday dinner. Groceries purchased by me for approximately 70% of these meals. Estimated grocery contribution over 11 years, conservatively $18,000. Not counted in the total because the cooking is what Locke does, and what Locke does is not assigned a dollar value. Because assigning a dollar value would require acknowledging that the doing is labor and the labor is skilled, and the skill was learned from a woman whose binder sits on the counter and whose grandson has been working for free since he was 22. Total countable invisible support, $67,200 mortgage plus $7,920 medical plus $9,360 insurance plus $680 tonight's dinner. $85,160 from the it boy who belongs in the kitchen. Saturday, 5:15 p.m. I checked into the Omni William Penn Hotel downtown. Room 714. The lobby was marble and brass, and the kind of quiet that hotels maintain when the guests are paying to not be bothered, which is the opposite of a kitchen where the guests are not paying and the cook is always bothered. I set Vero's binder on the desk. I set my bag on the bed. I showered. I changed into a clean shirt, and I sat in a chair by the window and looked at the city and waited for 7 p.m., which is the time that 20 people would walk into a dining room and find a table set for a feast with no feast on it. I almost called Pell to warn him. The warning was in my phone. Composed but not sent, Dad. The food is not at the house. Do not promise the guests dinner. But the chair stopped me. The chair I was sitting in at the Omni. The chair that was offered to me when I checked in. The lobby chair where the concierge said, "Please sit, Mr. Hughes, while we prepare your room." Please sit. 2 words no one in my family has said to me at a dinner table in 11 years. The chair at the Omni was offered. The chair at Sayer's birthday was denied. The difference was $189 per night and a family that does not understand the value of the man they call a servant. I almost drove back to the house to remove the cards. The cards were the part that would hurt the most because the cards were the part that was public. 20 guests reading 20 backs. The financial truths visible to Sayer's colleagues, Odette's friends, the neighbors. The family friends who have been eating my food for a decade. The cards would change how 20 people see my family. But Vero's binder stopped me. It was on the desk. Faded green. The binder that Vero gave me with the instruction, "The person who holds the knife feeds the room." The knife was mine. The room was empty. And the feeding was over. I almost texted Sayer happy birthday. The birthday was real. The brother was real. The 28 years were real. But the word servant stopped me. The word that a brother uses for the man who cooked his birthday dinner for free. The word that removes the humanity from the labor and replaces it with a title that means, you work for us, and the working is your value. And the value does not include a seat. Servants don't need chairs. 5 words. The 5 words were the reason the food was in my car, and the cards were on the table, and the cook was in a hotel room 7 miles from an empty dining room. Saturday, 7 p.m. I was not there. But I know what happened, because Pell called me at 7:14 p.m., and the call lasted 46 seconds, and the 46 seconds contained a voice I had never heard from my father, which was the voice of a man whose dining room is full of guests and empty of food, and whose place card is face up on a table with a truth written on the back that 20 people are reading simultaneously. The guests arrived at 7. Odette had lit the candles. She had adjusted the centerpiece. She had checked the napkins. She had not checked the kitchen because Odette does not check kitchens, because kitchens are where servants work, and the servant's work is assumed to be complete because the servant's work has always been complete for 11 years, and the assumption was the mistake, and the mistake was served at 7 p.m. on an empty table. The first guest to pick up a card was Sayer's colleague, a man named Dennis, who turned the card over because the calligraphy on the front was beautiful, and the beauty invited curiosity, and the curiosity produced the back, which said, "The dinner you were invited to tonight was bought, prepared, and cooked by the son who was not given a chair." He left. The food left with him. Grocery cost, $680. Years of free cooking, 11. Total support from the servant, $85,160. Dennis read it aloud. The reading aloud was the detonation. 20 people in a dining room. 20 cards being turned over in the same minute, and the minute produced a sound that was not a sound, but an absence of sound. The silence that fills a room when 20 people read the same number at the same time, and the number is $85. $160, and the number belongs to the man who was told to stay in the kitchen. Odette was standing at the head of the table, where she had been preparing to welcome the guests with a speech about Sayer's accomplishments. The speech died in her throat. The throat that had said cook quietly 8 hours ago was now unable to produce the celebration she had rehearsed because the celebration required food, and the food was in a car, and the car was at a hotel, and the hotel was 7 miles away, and the 7 miles were the distance between a mother's instructions and a son's departure. A neighbor named Gail turned her card over, read it, and looked at Odette. "Odette, who cooked the dinner?" The question was not a question. The question was a confirmation, because the card had already answered it, and the card's answer was, the person who was not given a chair. Odette did not answer. Gail set the card down. She picked up her purse. She left. The leaving was the first of 4 departures in the next 12 minutes, each departure a guest who had arrived expecting dinner and was leaving with a card and a number and the knowledge that the family's hospitality was funded by the family's servant. Sayer was at the far end of the table. He had picked up his card. Front, Sayer Hughes. Happy birthday. Back, $260 month car insurance. 3 years, $9,360. Happy birthday from the brother who doesn't need a chair. The birthday boy set the card down face up. He did not turn it back over. The not turning was the first time Sayer left a truth visible in a room instead of covering it, and the leaving visible was not a choice. The leaving visible was the absence of an option, because the truth was already out, and the out cannot be put back in. Pell's card was the last one read, because Pell was the last one to sit, because Pell was in the hallway looking for me when the reading started, and the looking was the looking of a man who has just walked past an empty kitchen and 2 cold burners, and a counter with no binder on it, and a refrigerator with no containers in it, and has begun to understand that the absence is not an oversight. The absence is a departure. Pell sat. He picked up his card. He turned it over. $1,400 month mortgage supplement. 4 years. $67,200 from your servant. His face went pale, not the pale of embarrassment, the pale of exposure. The pale of a man whose financial dependency has been written in his son's calligraphy on a cream card and read by 20 people who thought the house was paid for, and the dinners were cooked by Odette and the family was self-sufficient. None of it was true. The calligraphy said so. And the calligraphy was in the same handwriting as the place cards that have graced this table for 11 years. The handwriting of the son who set the table and was told to stay in the kitchen. Pell called me at 7:14 p.m. The call lasted 46 seconds. His voice was the voice of a man who has been exposed and whose exposure is ongoing because the guests are still reading and the reading is still happening, and the happening will not stop because the cards do not have a timer and the truth does not have an expiration, and the calligraphy does not fade in 46 seconds. Where is the food, Locke? With the cook. Come back. Bring the food. The food left when the cook left. The cook left when the cook was told servants don't need chairs. The food, the cook, and the chair are all at the same hotel. The table is yours. The cards are yours. The truth is yours. The food is mine. The call ended. I ended it. Welcome back to Family Secret Tales. If you are the son who cooked the dinner and was denied the chair and left the cards on the table and the food in the car and the truth in the calligraphy, hit subscribe. Because 20 people just read 20 cards and the dining room is empty and the cook is at a hotel and the family that called him a servant is sitting at a table with no food and $85,160 in truths they cannot eat. Sunday, 9 a.m. Pell and Odette arrived at my apartment. The knock was the knock of two people who have spent 14 hours processing the empty table and the cards and the guests and the drive, home and the silence in the car, and the 20 text messages from friends and colleagues who attended a birthday dinner with no birthday dinner, and left with a card that explained why. I opened the door. The binder was on my kitchen counter behind me. Visible, you ruined Sayre's birthday. Odette said it from the hallway. She had not stepped inside. The not stepping was the posture of a woman who has arrived to confront and does not want the confrontation to include sitting, because sitting would mean staying, and staying would mean listening, and Odette does not listen to the son who cooks. I cooked Sayre's birthday for 8 hours with $680 in groceries from my credit card. I roasted the lamb. I glazed the chicken. I baked the bread. I made the cake with his name on it in chocolate. I set the table for 20. I wrote the place cards by hand in calligraphy that my grandmother taught me. And then I was told to cook quietly, stay in the kitchen, and not sit with the guests because servants don't need chairs. So the servant left. And the food left with the servant. You humiliated this family in front of 20 people. The cards humiliated this family. Mom, the cards told the truth. And the truth is that the it boy who belongs in the kitchen has been paying $1,400 a month for Dad's mortgage for 4 years. $67,200. The truth is that I pay your medical copays. $220 a month, 3 years, $7,920. The truth is that Sayre's car insurance is on my policy. $260 a month, 3 years, $9,360. $680 in groceries for last night's dinner that I cooked for 8 hours and was not allowed to sit at. And the truth is that I have been cooking for this family for 11 years, buying the groceries, doing the labor, cleaning the kitchen, and receiving no credit, no chair, and no acknowledgement that the food arrives, because a person makes it arrive, and the person is your son, and the son has a name, and the name is not servant. Pell stepped forward from behind Odette. Locke, this is not how you handle a disagreement. This is not a disagreement, Dad. A disagreement is when two people see the same situation differently. This is a correction. I have been seeing the situation clearly for 11 years and doing nothing about it. The correction is doing something. The something is, the food is in my car, the cards are on the table, The binder is on my counter, and the mortgage supplement that keeps your house is canceled. That is not a disagreement. That is a bill coming due. Odette's voice tightened. Sayer is destroyed. His birthday is ruined. His colleagues saw those cards. Sayer called me a servant, Mom, in front of his girlfriend. In your kitchen, while I was plating the appetizers he was about to eat. He said servants don't need chairs. He was holding a beer I paid for at 10 a.m. on a birthday I was cooking for at 8 a.m. And the word he chose for his brother was servant. Sayer is not a victim. Sayer is a man who ate 11 years of free meals and called the cook a servant on the 12th, and the 12th was the last. I held up the binder. Faded green. 3-ring. Vero's handwriting visible through the clear cover pocket. This binder is Vero's. Grandma left it to me. Not to you. Not to Sayer. To me. Because I was the grandson who stood in her kitchen and learned. Everything I cooked last night came from this binder. Every meal I have cooked for 11 years came from this binder. And the binder is mine. The recipes are mine. The skill is mine. And the food that the skill produces is mine. The food left with the cook. The cards stayed with the truth. Servants don't need chairs. But neither do empty tables. Pell's hands came out of his pockets. I will set a chair for you at every dinner. From now on, you sit with the family. I will tell Sayer. I will tell everyone. Just put the mortgage back and come back to the table. The chair was not the problem, Dad. The chair was the symptom. The problem is that you needed 20 guests to read it on a card before you offered it. The problem is that the offering comes after the exposure and not before. The problem is that for 11 years I held the knife and fed the room, and the room did not know my name. And now the room knows my name because the name is on the back of a card, and the card is in 20 people's pockets, and the name is the cook who left, and the cook is not coming back to a table that required a public humiliation to offer him a seat. Odette's hand went to the doorframe. You are throwing away family over a dinner. I cooked the dinner, Mom. I am not throwing away the family. The family threw away the cook. And the cook is not a role. The cook is a person. And the person has a name. And the name is not servant. I step back. The mortgage supplement is canceled. The medical copays are canceled. The car insurance is being moved off my policy. And the cooking is over. 11 years. The binder goes with me. The recipes go with me. The knife goes with me. And the chair I was never given goes with me. Because I do not need your chair, Dad. I have my own. I closed the door. They stood in the hallway for 2 minutes. I heard Odette say something muffled through the door. I heard Pell say nothing. The nothing was the response of a man whose mortgage is uncovered and whose card is in 20 pockets and whose son's cooking was the only thing that brought 20 people to his house, and the cooking is gone, and the 20 people will not come back because the 20 people now know the cost of the dinner, and the cost was the cook's dignity. The fallout was financial and social, and it arrived the way a meal arrives when the cook stops cooking, abruptly, with nothing on the table. Sayer's colleagues talked. Dennis, the man who read the card aloud, told 3 people at their pharmaceutical company the following Monday. The 3 told others. By Wednesday, the version of events circulating through Sayer's sales office was, his brother cooked a dinner for 20, was told to stay in the kitchen, and left the food and the truth on handwritten place cards. Sayer's reputation at work, the reputation of a man who celebrates generously and hosts beautifully, was replaced by the reputation of a man whose brother cooks for him unpaid, and whose brother was called a servant at his own family's table. A colleague named Miriam asked Sayer directly in the break room, "Is it true your brother cooked the whole dinner and you called him a servant?" Sayer said it was taken out of context. Miriam said, the card said $85,160. What context makes that number okay? Sayer did not answer. The not answering was the answer, and the answer circulated through the office the way the cards had circulated through the dining room. Completely, irreversibly, and without a version that made Sayer look better. The mortgage supplement stopped. Pell received the January statement showing the full $3,000 due. The $1,600 from his pension arrived. The remaining $1,400 did not. For the first time in 4 years, the gap between the pension and the mortgage was visible. And the visibility was not a number on a card this time. The visibility was a statement from the bank with a balance due and a due date and the specific weight of an amount that a 60-year-old retired man with a bad back cannot produce from a pension that was never designed to carry a $3.00 mortgage alone. Pell called the bank. The bank offered a forbearance plan. The plan required paperwork and a financial hardship declaration, and the declaration required admitting, on a form, that the previous supplemental payments were made by a family member who had discontinued them. The form was the card in a different format, a document that said the house was held together by the son who was not given a chair. Odette's medical copay went to full cost at the pharmacy the following week. The prescription that had been covered by the son's $220 monthly contribution was now a line item in a budget that did not contain a line for it. The first month without the subsidy, Odette skipped the thyroid medication refill because the refill was $94 and the $94 was not available. The skipping was the first medical decision Odette had made based on cost in 3 years, and the cost was the shape of a son's absence from the budget that had always included him without naming him. Sayer's car insurance was moved off my policy on December 1st. His individual rate, recalculated with 2 at-fault accidents, was $580 per month. The $580 was $320 more than the $260 he had been paying on my policy, and the $320 was the monthly difference between a brother who subsidizes and a brother who does not, and the not was permanent. Sunday evening. The Omni William Penn Hotel, downtown Pittsburgh. I was still checked in. I had extended the stay one night because the staying was the first time in 11 years I had spent a weekend not cooking for someone else, and the not cooking was a freedom I had not known was missing until the missing was filled by a hotel room and a window in a city that did not need me to hold a knife. The hotel restaurant was on the first floor. Dark wood, white tablecloths, low lighting. I walked in at 7 p.m. The hostess said, "Good evening, sir. Table for one?" Table for one. She led me to a window seat. She pulled the chair out. I sat. The sitting was the sitting of a man who has not been offered a chair at a dinner table by anyone other than a restaurant hostess in 11 years. And the offering was the normal, unremarkable act of a woman doing her job, which is to seat guests, and the unremarkable was the most remarkable thing that had happened to me in 11 years. Because the unremarkable meant I was a guest and not a servant, and the difference was a chair being pulled out instead of a kitchen being pointed at. The waiter brought the menu. I ordered the pan-seared salmon with roasted vegetables and a glass of sparkling water. I did not cook it. I did not prep it. I did not debone it. I did not time it. I did not plate it. The salmon arrived on a white plate, plated by a chef I would never meet, carried by a waiter whose name I learned, set on a table where a cloth napkin was folded and a glass was filled, and the chair was pulled out before I asked. Vero's binder was in my bag next to the chair. The faded green edge was visible through the zipper. The binder that contains every recipe I have cooked for 11 years, the recipes that have fed 20 people and 40 people and 12 people at Thanksgivings and Christmases and birthdays, the recipes that Vero wrote in cursive with a pencil that smelled like flour, the recipes that are mine because Vero gave them to me, and the giving was not servitude. The giving was inheritance. The inheritance was skill. And the skill was sitting in a bag next to a chair in a restaurant where the man who holds the knife is being served. I cut the salmon with a fork. The salmon was good. Not as good as Vero's honey-glazed chicken, which I will cook again. In my own kitchen, on my own schedule, for my own plate, at my own table, in my own chair. But the salmon was good because the salmon was served to me by a person who did not call me a servant in a restaurant that did not ask me to stay in the kitchen, in a city that did not know my name except as the name on the reservation. which is Hughes. Party of one. The party of one ate the salmon slowly, deliberately. The party of one drank the water. The party of one sat in the chair that was pulled out for him by a waiter named David, who said, "Your table is ready, sir." And the sir was the word that replaced the servant. And the replacement was not revenge. The replacement was just dinner. One plate, one chair, one man being served instead of serving. And the serving felt like the first meal in 11 years that did not cost him his name or his chair. Welcome back to Family Secret Tales. If this story reminded you that the person who holds the knife feeds the room and that a cook is not a servant and a servant is not a title a family should give to a son who feeds them, share it tonight. Hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me, has your family ever told you to cook the dinner and denied you the chair? I will see you in the next one.